Right now, somewhere, a person is sitting in a parked car they haven't started yet, hands on the wheel, and salt water is running down their face. Nothing's broken, they're not in pain, not the kind you can point to. And here's the strange part. On a whole planet packed with animals that have eyes and grief and feelings, that person is doing something no other creature on Earth does, crying actual tears over a feeling. Dogs whimper, elephants mourn their dead. Your cat, frankly, judges you. But not one of them sheds a single emotional tear. We're the only ones. So today, why we cry, the real wet, ugly, can't stop it kind, when no other animal bothers. Because the answer isn't the one you've been handed, and it starts with a baby who can't do it yet. Here's the thing almost nobody clocks. A newborn comes out screaming. First breath, first sound, a full body howl. But look closely, must know tears bone dry. For the first weeks of life, babies cry with everything they've got and produce nothing. The waterworks don't switch on until somewhere around 1 to 3 months. Which is our first clue. Crying and tears are two completely different machines. Your eyes actually make 3 kinds of tears, and only one of them is the mystery. There's the basal kind, the thin film keeping your eyeball from drying out, running quietly all day. There's the reflex kind, the flood when you chop an onion or grit blows in. Every animal with working eyes makes those two: lizards, birds, your dog. And then there's the third kind, the one that only shows up when something inside you breaks or swells up too big to hold. Emotional tears, and those, as far as we can tell, are ours alone. Now, the skeptic in the room is already objecting. What about elephants? You've seen the videos. And honestly, it's a fair shot. So let's take it seriously. Charles Darwin asked this exact question back in 1872. He gathered up every report he could find of weeping animals, including elephants in India said to cry. And after all of it, he landed where modern researchers still land. The emotional tear, the one tied to grief and tenderness, looks essentially human. Other animals make tears, sure. They tear up from pain, from a gust of wind, from a poke in the eye. What we have never once been able to confirm, in 150 years of looking, is another animal that leaks tears purely because it feels something. That's not a small gap. That's the whole mystery. So we've got this one bizarre trait sitting only in us. The obvious question is what it's even for. And this is exactly where the story you've probably been told goes wrong. You've maybe heard that crying flushes toxins out of your body, that tears are how you literally drain stress, that a good cry is your system detoxing. Lovely idea. It's been printed on 1,000 wellness posters. And it traces back to a real scientist, biochemist William Frey, who found in the 80s that emotional tears carry a bit more protein and a few more stress-related compounds than onion tears do. Here's where our skeptic earns his dinner, because that finding got stretched into something it simply cannot carry. The amount of toxin you could possibly cry out is trivial, a rounding error. Your kidneys and liver do the real detoxing by the liter every single hour. And as one historian of crying put it, if weeping actually scrubbed your troubles out, professional actors who cry on cue 8 shows a week would be the most emotionally healthy people alive. They are not. So scratch the detox story, a tear isn't a drain. Which cracks the real question wide open. If crying isn't cleaning something out of you, then what on earth is it doing? And this is where it gets genuinely strange, because the best answer we have is that your tears were never really about you at all. A psychologist named Robert Provine ran a beautifully simple test. He took photos of crying faces, then digitally erased the tears. Same eyes, same mouth, everything else identical. Then he asked people what they saw. With the tears, viewers read the face in an instant. That person is sad, that person needs help. With the tears wiped out, the same faces went murky. People couldn't tell. Sad, worried, confused? The tear was the message, take it away, and the meaning just collapses. And that flips the whole thing on its head. A tear isn't a leak. It's a letter addressed to the people around you. It says with no words at all, in any language on the planet, I'm not okay, I'm not a threat, I need you. It even blurs your own vision. It physically lowers your guard, makes you less able to fight or run, which is precisely what makes it almost impossible to fake. An honest signal, hard to counterfeit, instantly understood. And it might cut even deeper than what we can see. In 2023, researchers at the Weizmann Institute had men sniff women's emotional tears, odorless, no way to tell them from plain saline, then drop them into a game built to provoke aggression. The men who'd sniffed real tears came out about 44% less aggressive. The brain scans agreed. The aggression circuits actually went quiet. Tears, it seems, may carry a chemical signal as well, the very same trick rodents use, where one animal's tears blunt the aggression of the animals that smell them. Now, honest caveat, because this is the channel that gives you those. That's one striking study with a small group, and it's new. It's a promising thread, not a settled fact. File it under Watch This Space. But the visual part, the tear as a sign that other people instantly read, that one's on solid ground. And that's the payoff hiding under all of this. If you find it half as wild as I do, that your tears are basically a broadcast to other people, stick around, because there's a reason this could only have evolved in us. And a subscribe genuinely helps a small channel like this keep digging into the weird true stuff. Okay, why us? Think about what kind of animal we turned into. Human babies are born absurdly helpless, useless, honestly, for years. Far longer than any other ape. And we never raised them alone. We raised them in groups, leaning on each other, sharing food and care in a way almost nothing else on Earth does. Survival stopped being about how strong you were. It became about whether the people around you would step in. And the flip side of that was brutal. For most of the human story, being alone wasn't freedom. It was a death sentence. Cast out from the band, nobody to share food, nobody watching your back, and you did not survive the winter. So we needed a way to reach the people around us, fast, automatic, impossible to fake, and say, I need you, before it was too late. A signal that carried across a noisy, dark cave, that worked before a baby could speak a word, that worked when you were too wrecked to get any words out at all. Tears pull off all three. Which is why the oldest insult about crying gets it completely backwards. The idea that tears are weakness, that real strength is the dry stone face, that's not some ancient wisdom. It's a recent, mostly cultural costume. The trait itself is the opposite of primitive. A reflex that summons a whole group to your side, disarms aggression, and builds the trust a cooperative species runs on. That isn't a bug in the human machine. It might be one of the most sophisticated things the machine does. Lizards don't cry, sharks don't cry. The toughest, most self-sufficient survivors on the planet don't cry. We do, man, because somewhere along the line we became the animal that admits out loud and in salt water that it can't make it alone. So go back to that person in the parked car. The tears on their face aren't a malfunction. They aren't toxins draining away. They're the oldest message our species ever learned to send, a message that only means anything at all because someone else is there to read it. That's the thing no other animal does, not because the others don't feel, plenty of them clearly do, but because we became the one creature whose feelings had somewhere to go, whose survival depended on being understood. You don't cry because you're weak. You cry because a very long time ago, your ancestors lived or died by needing each other. And your body still remembers the deal. That might be the strangest, most human thing your body does. If it just rewired how you think about a good cry, you'll like the rest of what we get into around here. So stick around, and I'll see you in the next one.